Laundry, same thing. If you need it for Shabbos,
Same thing?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So you're saying there's no difference.
Correct.
Why I missed that? What'd you say about haircuts and shaving Thursday night?
If you're not going to have time Friday, then you could take a haircut and shave Thursday night already. Laundry can be done Thursday night.
No, it's it becomes like a tardy disaster. You know, you're not really allowed to take haircuts after. I mean, you're not supposed to take haircuts after Chatzais, right? On Shabbos, and you're supposed to wait till Chatzais to take a haircut. So,
correct. It's not a tardy disaster, but
not a tardy disaster. You
can't win.
You can't do anything on top of Shabbos.
You can't win. It's another area in Yiddishkeit where you can't win.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see the Gemara. First part of the Gemara is easy. Second part of the Gemara is a little hard because it's a repeat of the daf that we had around 5 blot ago, about whether when you make a shliach, and that shliach goes and makes another shliach, mili memsir l'shliach or not. Okay, so we're up to Ayin Amid Beis, 6 lines up from the bottom. So in the static, so we said that if a guy became a mute and he wants to give a get, so we ask him and we test him and we see if he's legit or not. Right? So I'm gonna ask. And then basically what happens is you go to the guy and you give him a test. We ask him a question, or the Gemara is going to discuss that exactly what the question is. Yeah. So let's see. V'leichush Dilma. Man, what is with this announcement? Is the guy getting paid by the word? All right. V'leichush Dilma. Why don't we chush it? I mean, the guy's shaking his head. Yes, no. Why don't we chush it? Dilma shichkir lav nakte. Maybe he has some sort of. He has the shakes, I guess. I don't know if this is Tourette's. I don't know exactly what this is, but it basically that he shakes his head, that his head goes from side to side. Right? I mean, you ask him a question and he has this problem that his head shakes.
How many people are afflicted with this condition that it should really play a factor?
Yeah, that's a good question. Right? Meaning, why would you be choshev for a miyut? Right?
Yeah, I mean, every time somebody nods at you, do you think that they have a condition, or do you think they're nodding at you?
Depends on which neighborhood.
And it depends on which person.
We already said multiple times that when it comes to Yilson and Mamzerim, we're very, very makbid.
You think that's a pshat because of Mamzerim?
Didn't we say this in Yavamas a number of times that for even more things that you normally wouldn't be choshev for, you'd be choshev for Mitzad Mamzerim? Right.
I hear that.
Yilson.
Yeah. Maybe that's a pshat. Okay, anyway, so that's what the Gemara is asking. Maybe he has the shakes of shaking his head up and down. So Rabbi Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yosef, Amar Rav Nachman, Damrinan Leibusirugin. No, what we do is first we ask him a yes question, then we ask him a no question. I mean, we don't ask him 3 questions as he's going to answer yes and 3 no in a row. No, we alternate. So Gemara says, maybe it's getting even more David. It's getting even more not choshen. Meaning he has the shakes where he says no, and then yes. So does
Sirugan mean yes or then no, or does it mean that you just wait?
Smoke chopper and mincha right now. Let's do it.
You
get squeezing, huh?
Somebody just asked me that. I told them I don't know.
You said what?
Somebody just asked me on text. I said I don't know.
You don't know? Since when do you say that?
If you're so past, then you can go till if you're Samar Rabbeinu Tam, see Samar Rabbeinu Tam.
Yeah, we're not Samar Rabbeinu Tam.
So then you're done.
We're not done. After Shkir, you're done?
Yeah, it's a whole different crew here, the second half. Whole different crew. Anyways, you're saying Serugan means
Rashi is just you wait. And if a guy's takadish,
you're right. That's the way Rashi says it. You're right, Maskin. Rashi says that it's not Sirugin. I was touching his back and forth. Actually, that's the next teretz. Yeah, I mixed up the next teretz with this. Seruga means you wait an hour. All right, fine. So nothing. Maybe he has it. Maybe he has the shakes every hour. When it answers Damrina lay, this is the teretz that I said before. Damrina lay chad lav v'train hain. You ask him one that's going to say no, and then two that's going to say yes. V'train lav v'chad hain. Then you ask him two questions that he's going to have to say no, and then he's going to have to say yes. So basically, we mixed it up enough that he's not going to, it can't possibly be attributed to something involuntary shaking of the head. The way Rabbi Shmuel Tana, what we do is we try and fool him a little bit. All right, we ask him things that he should give one reaction during the summer months or during the winter months, and if he says what he shouldn't be saying, then that means we have to be chayshit that he's shaking the head, right? Mind you, so what is that? Ilema, if you say glufkari v'sadine, that he needs to put on a coat, or to use sheets. The Rashi says is made out of pishton, right? And you use that. I guess that's warmer, so you use that in the winter.
Nobody knew how to write.
What do you mean?
Write down the answer, what they're asking him.
No, we want to see if the guy has brains. We want to know if the guy has his wits about him, right?
This is somebody, what is this person's issue? We had an issue before today.
He's mute. Oh, so we're going to see that later in the daf. That's a good question, right? He's a mute. So we have no idea if there's something wrong with his brains or not. So that's what we have to figure out. Then when he appointed the Eidim to say the Eidos, then was he legit or not? So we have to see. We have to test them. That's what we're doing. That's essential. We'll see more of that on the next summit. See, if you're going to say it has to do with a coat, it's interesting. The laws of Rashi here is coat. The laws in Rashi says coat. All right, 4 lines up from the bottom, 5 lines from the bottom. So then Leikish Dilma, maybe he's one of those guys that's cold in the summer. You know, you always have those guys that are always cold, right? Or maybe he's one of those guys that's always hot in the winter. We have some on this stuff, right? That they're just still hot. So how do you know? So the Gemara answers on Talmud Aleph now. Ella Peri. Talk about the fruits, right? Meaning fruits in melanin season, as they call it. Right? I know somebody who says it, melanin season. Right? So you want to make sure if you ask him about the different melons in the seasons, in the wrong season, and he gets then you know that if he answers it correctly, then you know he's okay.
Is this Gemara's teretz the teretz to the Gemara's original question? Is turning to Baby Shmuel a teretz to whether shikya hein lav lav is this like another teretz? Meaning, would you need to ask him those questions that b'sirugan, not b'sirugan, really out of order, a lav and then a hin and then a lav and then a hin? If you do it this way, if you ask him about seasonal fruits.
Is it? I'm not sure. I thought it was just a continuation. Right? That's what I thought. But you think it's not like that?
No, I'm just wondering if it's the Gemara seems to put it right after. I'm wondering if it's something that's.
I thought it was a continuation, but okay. Okay, Zog the Gemara. Omer Rav Kana Omer Rav. So Cheresh sheyochel daber mitoich haksav. Rabban, this is what you were saying. So Cheresh, I think is what you were saying. Sheyochel daber mitoich haksav. So let's say the Cheresh is able to, literally it's translated, he's able to speak from writing. That doesn't mean he could read what it's written. I mean, I guess he could do that too. But it means that he could write. Meaning he's smart enough. He's a Cheresh, means he's deaf. Cheresh, no, well, we're going to get to in the Gemara now how do you exactly define Cheresh. But a Cheresh who was able to communicate by talking, then then he is allowed to give a get to his wife. Meaning normally a Cheresh, Shaitav, Katan are considered like they don't have brains. So therefore they cannot get married, at least midaraisa, and they cannot get divorced because it's considered like they don't have understanding. But if this guy who's a cherish is able to write down on a piece of paper that he wants his wife to get divorced, that he wants to divorce his wife or something like that, then it's allowed, right? If as long as he could write. Somewhere Yosef, my kamashon, what's your chiddush? Tanina, we have it. Nishtatik, if a guy became a mute, and we say to him, and we ask him if he should give a get to his wife, and he shakes his head, right? So we check him out, right? This is our Mishnah. So you see that a mute that has the ability to communicate can give a get. So what's the chiddush here? That he could write on a piece of paper that he could give a get that he's not trusted. And what's the chiddush? I mean, that he is trusted. What's the chiddush that he? Why would you think he's not trusted? Our Mishnah says beferish that he's trusted. Amrale Razera, Elam Ka'amrit. We're talking about an Elam, meaning all he is mute. Shani Elam, and Elam is different than a cherish, meaning our Mishnah that says that he could give a get. It's talking about a guy who's just mute, but he could hear. All right, so Mamela, he could, if he says to give a get, we could trust him. But our Gemara is saying that even if the guy is deaf mute, as long as he could write, if he could write down on a piece of paper, if he could communicate that he wants to divorce his wife, then the divorce works. The Tanya, somebody who could speak and can't hear, that's a cherish. Somebody who could hear and not speak is an elim. And both of these halachically are considered like pikhin. They're considered like regular smart people. Right? So when the cherish, we see from this that the cherish that we're referring to throughout Shas means that they're deaf and they're mute. Okay, so now I'm going to wants to figure out the source for this. How do you know this? That if he could speak and not hear, he's considered a cherish. Says, I am like a deaf person. It's a pasuk in Tehillim. I'm like a deaf person who can't hear, and like an elam who can't open his mouth. So you see, beferish that somebody who can't hear is considered a cherish, and somebody who can't talk is considered an elam. Biba is saying, this is an atrikon of ishtakol. You take the aleph from the first word of ishtakol, and the lamed, which is the last letter, and then the first letter mem, that stands for elam, which is ishtakol milule, means his words are taken away. So that's how we know that. That's how we know that each one by itself is not a problem, only when they're combined. Some Rav Zera says, kashali, if I were to have a kasha on this, kashali, this will be my kasha. The Tanya, imla yagid, says a din that a person, if he knows Eidus, he has to say Eidus. He has to testify. But if somebody has a court case and somebody is aware of some Eidus, then a person has to say Eidus. And if he doesn't want to say the Eidus, we make him swear that he doesn't know the Eidus. So let's say he does, and he does it falsely. So it says if a guy in lo yagid, if he doesn't say, that's coming to exclude a guy who's mute, who's not able to talk, right? So if he makes a shvua that he didn't know the edus, then he's not going to get malchus, right? Why shouldn't he get malchus? He could communicate by writing. Edus comment, you're talking about Edus? Shani Edus, the Rahman Amr Mipiyam V'Loi Mipiksavam. Edus is different because meaning normally he could communicate through writing. But Edus is different because we know that Edus has to be verbal. Edus cannot be written down. It's a Meisvis that asks the Kasha. Kishem Shabbat Ganoisel Gittin. So the same way, right? Where is this? This is in. Yeah.
The guy makes a ned, he's not going to talk. So you'd say, Esedai says, and he has to say the Edus in Bezdin.
I mean, I'm going to cop out from the question and say we'll be matir as neder.
Okay, fine.
But that doesn't answer your question. It's just a cop out, right? Let's say there's no rabbi around to be matir and neder, let's say, or no experts. And then what will we say? I don't know. It's a good question. Yeah, so Meisvei said, ask the Kasha Kashem Shabbat Kanois Legit in the same way we check into him for Gittin. meaning somebody who can't talk. So, like we said, we ask him questions to see if he shakes his head for the correct questions, incorrect questions. Kach baitken oisoi, the masais for business, for the matanos, and for masonis. Maso mata means business. Uli idius, and for testimony, uli yerushas, and for inheritance. So you see that a person who's mute can do edus, because for edus we check into him. Katani mias idius. So it says idius. Amar Rav Yosef Bar Menuhin, Amar Rav Sheshes beedus isha tekilah barabanan. That edus that we're talking about is not your standard edus. Your standard edus we cannot take from an elim, right? But edus isha to be mater and aguna, that we're going to take. So Gemara says vakatani yerushas, but it says yerushas. So yerushas is testifying, right? So Amar Rabbo yerushas b'nai habachar. No, what it says about yerushas, it means the yerushas b'nai habachar, which is if a guy decides that he doesn't want his bachar to take pishnayim. So what he could do is he could testify and say that he doesn't want his bachar to get pishnayim. That's not an edus. That's just him letting Bezdin know that he's not giving pishnayim to his son. Katani miyas l'masois l'matanis. It says from maso matan, right? That's business. My love, la alma. Isn't this talking about doing business for other people? In which case it's an edus. So we say loy, the day it's for him. Fine. So Meisvei said asked the kasha. Now this is going back on Rav's side. So we're done now with, we say that somebody who is mute can be trusted. However, he cannot say edus because edus can't be written. Fine. Now going back on Rav's original din, which was that if he could communicate that he's giving a get with writing, then we trust him. Not trust him, but we say that he has brains. So meisvei cheresh, so a mute, a deaf mute, loy holchu, lo holchu by acharim mizoyzav achar kfitzayzav achar ksav yadoi. We don't go after his remizas, his sign language, or after his mouth moving, like if he mouths things, but achar ksav yadoi, and not after his writing. The only time we say that we're not going to do this is for metaltalin, right? Meaning when we say that we're not going to trust him, that's only by metaltalin, right? But loy legittin, but not for gittin. So you see that it does not work for gittin, right? Meaning when we said that we're not gonna trust him, that's only by metaltalin. But I'm sorry, we're going to trust him. That's by metaltalin. But by gittin, we're not going to trust him. We just got finished saying that by gittin, we are going to trust him if he says that he wants to give his wife a get. My answer is Tanoi. It's really a machlokes Tanoim. The Tanya, Amar Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, Bamed Varam Amurim Becheresh Meikaresh. We're talking about a cheresh who was a cheresh from the beginning, meaning he was always from birth. He was a cheresh. But if he was a regular, healthy person, then he became deaf. Who kaisev? Then he could write a get, behein chaisman, and they could sign it. So what do you see? The Rav Shimon Gamliel holds that if he was smart and then he became deaf, right, or he could hear and then he became deaf, so Rav Shimon Gamliel says that we trust him, right? So clearly, the Rav is going like Rav Shimon Gamliel, and the other Bryce is going like the Tanakama. Now we'll see on Amar Beis whether they're actually disagreeing or not. So the Gemara asks, are you saying that somebody who was deaf from the beginning, he cannot write down that he wants somebody to divorce his wife? But we say that the same way a deaf person could marry a woman with
How else would he be able to divorce his wife?
He wouldn't be able to divorce his wife.
So he can. Someone who's a cheresh cannot divorce his wife ever.
Correct. Well, till now. Well, if he can't write, then yeah, then he cannot.
I'm saying we don't trust his motions. We don't trust this. We don't trust his handwriting. So therefore,
It also
he can't.
depends. We're making a chiluk if he's born that way, or if the guy never had a stroke and he lost his speech.
Yeah, but if a guy, right? But the bottom line is, according to all opinions, the guy has to be able to communicate properly. If he cannot communicate properly, then yes, then he cannot get divorced. Right? But yes, so now the Gemara Rav Shimon Gamliel is being machalik whether he was deaf from birth or he was healthy and then he became deaf. So this is actually talking about by Yavamas, right? Yeah. This is talking about where somebody who was deaf got married, then he wants to divorce her. So we say he could do it. Why? Because when he was deaf before he got married, so midaraisa it's not a marriage. It's only a marriage midrabanan. Okay, so the rabbanon, since they weren't really married minatayr, they only married midrabanan. So the rabbanon said they can get divorced too, right? But whatever it is, it was saying that the same way they got married with Remiza, so too they can get divorced with Remiza. So my answer is Ibe Ishtay Hachanami. If you're talking about his wife, that he's talking about divorcing his wife, so then yes, then it would work. Hachamayaskin, and here we're talking about Yevimtai. We're talking about Yevimtai, right? So that's why he's not allowed to get divorced. Why? It's not complicated, but it's a little technical going back to Yavamas. Right? What happened by Yavamas? His brother was married to a woman, right? Regular marriage. Then he died. So this guy, by doing Yibum, a deaf guy could do Yibum. That becomes a deraisa marriage, right? That becomes a marriage deraisa. Even though, since he's deaf, there would be no way for him to get married mid deraisa, because he's considered a shaita or the equivalent, right? But here, since there was an original marriage from his brother, which is a deraisa marriage, and then Yibum kicks right in, so then he's really considered, and then he marries the sister-in-law, it's considered like he's married mid deraisa, right? So now, how would we be allowed to let him get divorced? A derabbanan take a divorce on a deraisa marriage. So that's what we're saying here, right? So we're talking about Yevimtai. So they're going to ask, but Yevimtai miman. So how did the Yibum happen? If his brother who died, meaning let's say it was genetic, so him and his brother were both deaf. So his brother's marriage was also with the Rabbanon. So the same way his brother, who was deaf, got married with sign language or whatever it was, the same thing. This second brother can also get divorced with Remiza. Must be Ella. We're talking about where the brother that was originally married was a Pikeach, who was a regular guy, so his marriage is a Daraisa. And now the Yibum kicks in also Daraisa. And now this guy's trying to get divorced, but he's a Cheresh. He can't do it because it's the Rabbanon.
It's Yaakov is the din.
Didn't we say before Kadas Moshe Yisrael that it's that Lashon means it's the Rabbanon also every Chasana?
Did we say that? I don't know. I don't know. The Das Moshe Yisrael was Deraisa. I don't know. I don't remember. What are you saying, Akiva?
There's a din. I forget for you brothers, but there's a din yibum in their rabbanon if they're both cherishes. If they're both cherishes, if the first brother married and the wife and
That's
the husband
what the Gemara
dies,
says.
there's a din der rabbanon on yibum.
That's what the Gemara says, no? Yeah, why not? I'm saying, what's the difference?
I
if
don't
his
know. Why
marriage
should there be anything?
It's a
Why would they
Derabanan.
Why would they be geyser yibum der rabbanon? Just leave it alone.
What do you mean, leave it alone?
What? Yibum
Not
is
let the
din
Yibum go through?
Are they geyser or can right? Like, why would there be geyser? There's no din der yibum.
I thought that happens automatic.
Why would yibum happen automatic if there's no kedusha? Is it
No, what's
Xera? So
Kedusha Midrabanan?
I guess you're saying that the same way they were Kedusha Darbanan, their guys are even Darbanan?
Excuse me. What are you saying?
You're saying the same way there were guys, there's a Kedusha Darbanan, they wanted there to be a Yibam Darbanan with that?
I thought, doesn't that go part and parcel together?
I don't know.
I don't know if it's
Why
Xera. Why is it Xera?
I'm just
I
saying,
don't
why
know
should
why. I don't know. It's Xera.
What's the din Cherish? Why is a Cherish treated like a Shaita? Isn't it Midin Suffolk? He may be normal, he may be not. We don't know. We can't. We don't have a way to gauge his das. If he has das, then Kiddushin's a perfect Kiddushin. Yibum's a perfect Kiddushin. It might not be. So on the top that it's not, he can't get married. He can't do things that are normal. So the Rabbanan say, okay, if he does get married, we'll give it a din Rabbanan at least. But Mimanav Shach, he can get divorced the same way. But his brother got married. He's now a cherish. He has to do yibum, or she can't get married. She can't get married, Loilam.
Right. That's why I think. Otherwise, the keeper. What kind of Dirabanan marriage is it going to be if we don't say that the Yibum kicks in? No.
First of all, if you have all if you have all the, in a case where it's a what's it called, Gershon, it's not true if it's a case if there's a Isure Arayis or whatever it is, we wouldn't say such a din lagabe cherish. We wouldn't be pekei the zika mitzad, the tsaras and all that. We would never say such a din.
Right. I hear. I don't know. I'm not sure how it technically works. All right, let's go back to Okay, so that's one territory. So it's talking about where they got the Yibum happened from a brother who was a healthy guy. Mamela, the brother's marriage was a deraisa. His marriage, his Yibum is a derabanan, and now Mamela, he can't get divorced. But if theoretically he got married as a deaf man and he wants to get divorced as a deaf man, that would be a derabanan. Derabanan, that would be fine. Fine. Biba is saying, we could say a different shot. We're talking about where the original brother was a cherish. And we're going to say gezerah that the same way that you're not allowed to get divorced from a deaf one, because if you're going to, then you might end up getting divorced when the brother was a regular guy, and that is not going to work. So that's a gezerah. So Gemara says, so if that's the case, then by his own wife too make the gezerah. Meaning, how can you let a guy get divorced, a guy who's deaf, who got married when he's deaf, divorce his wife? Maybe in a case of yibum, there's going to be a problem. So Gemara says, some people will get mixed up one yibum with another yibum. People are not going to mix up a wife with a yibum. So they're going to ask, do we make a gezerah of a deaf person because maybe if the original husband is a smart person, that they're going to mess up on the get on Tamabez now? But Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Shnei Achin. This is a classic Yevamos Mishnah right here, in case anybody missed it. Shnei Achin Chershin, two brothers who are deaf. Nesuin Shtei Achayis Pikchos, who married two healthy girls. Oy Shtei Achayis Charshos, or two deaf sisters. Or two sisters, achas pikachas v'achas chareshes. One could hear, one is deaf. B'chein shtei achayos charshos, or two sisters who are deaf. Nesuas l'shnei achen pikchen, married to two brothers who are pikchen. Oy l'shnei achen, basically every combination you want. All right. Oy l'shnei achen chershin, or to two brothers who are deaf. Oy l'shnei achen, or to two brothers echad pikech v'echad cheresh. One is pikech, one is cheresh. In all these cases, they're potter from chalitza and from yibum. Right? So, right, meaning they don't have to do anything. But if they're nachrios, meaning they're not siblings, that's because here we're talking about where they're siblings. Because we know from the beginning of Yevamos that it's called it's a arayis. It's a double arayis, meaning besides that they're marrying their brother's sister, it also is a sister's wife's sister, etc., etc. So Then, but if they were strange, yikonsu, then they could get married, right? Bimratu lahaitzian, and if they want to get divorced, yaitziu, meaning divorced after they do yibum. Whatever it is, you see, the bottom line is that we're allowing them to do yibum, even though it's coming off of how do you say it? They never answered somebody who's deaf to do yibum. Right? We just got finished saying that we're making a gezerah that you can never do it because we're afraid it's going to be a nichshel for somebody who was originally healthy. Right? So here you clearly see that they didn't make any sort of gezerah. So Gemara says, it's clear, like the original teretz, which is that it only works. The only way the case works is if the guy is the original guy was deaf, the original husband was deaf, and then before he died. Fine.
Yeah, why don't you say something Gamliel?
What?
Why don't you say something Gamliel?
Why don't we say it's a Shimon? We're going to Shimon Gamliel.
And wouldn't he allow for you to do it b'ksiva? Why can't you say the case you talk about where you use b'ksiva? And you're able to go ahead and if the Cherish writes, I want to divorce her, he's able to divorce her.
Well, we're saying that it won't work in this case.
I thought that's only for Remiza it wouldn't work.
No, Ksiva also.
I thought we're Mechal between Ksiva and Remiza.
No, I think we're bunching it all. I understand that we're bunching it all together. Right? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Okay, bye. Rabbi Yochanan. Chalukah alav chaver about Rishon Gamliel, the Tanakama, the Rabbanon, are chaylik on Rishon Gamliel. Right? Yeah. So meaning that even a pikeach who became deaf is not allowed to divorce her. Meaning Rav Shimon Gamliel holds that a pikeach is allowed to divorce her. Right? But in the Chachamim disagree and they say no. Yeah, so Amar Abaya, Afan Anamik Nina. We have a brisa like that. A Mishnah like that, I'm sorry. Nish how do you say it? Nishtes. If a woman became a shaita, right? Unfortunately, right, David, is also a case where if a woman becomes a shaita, she can't get divorced. This is right because a woman needs to have das in order to get divorced. Yeah. Meaning, at least the Rabbanon. With the Raisa, you don't need das, right? With the Raisa, you could have forced to get onto a woman. But Nishatis, if she becomes a shaita, lo yaitzi, he cannot divorce her. Nisharish hu a nishtata, if the husband became deaf, or he became a shaita, lo yatzi olamis, they can't get divorced forever. My olamis, what does it mean forever? Lav, the chiddush is afagav the yachal adav mitaychaksav. Doesn't olamis mean that even if the husband could write down on a paper that he wants to divorce her, which we've been saying means that he has enough brains to divorce her, still we're not going to allow it. Right? So you see that there's a machlokes because Rav Shimon Gamliel would hold that you could. Right? So that's what we're thinking. That's a machlokes the Rabban and Rav Shimon Gamliel. Some Rav Papa, he loved the Shemina Rabbi Yochanan. If you wouldn't have told us that Rabbi Yochanan, if Rabbi Yochanan wouldn't have told us that the Tanakama disagrees with Shimon Gamliel, then I would have thought that Shimon Gamliel is just coming to explain the Tanakama. Okay, so then what does it mean, Maya Lama? So what is it saying that they could never get divorced? Even though we see that he's sharp, literally means he's sharp. Right? Even if you see that he's sharp, we wouldn't let him get divorced if he can't write. If he could write, we let him get divorced. If he can't write, then we don't let him get divorced, even if we see that he's a sharp guy. Inami, look at Rabbi Yitzchak. All we can say like Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak, Dvar Torah, Shaita Miskareshes. Mina Torah, a Shaita could get divorced. Midi to have a Bikachas Bal Karcha. Because it's no different than a smart woman who could be divorced against her will, right? We know that you're allowed to force a woman, at least midaraisa, you're allowed to force a woman to take a get. You just go by her yard, throw the get into her yard, and that's it. Nowadays, we don't do that. I mean, the Rabbanan say we don't do that. But since you could force a woman who's regularly healthy to take a get, so then why can't you give a woman who's a shaita a get? It doesn't make a difference if she has das or she doesn't have das, right? It doesn't make a difference if she has das or doesn't have das, right? If you could force a woman, right? If you could force a woman, a regular, healthy, normal woman to get divorced, then you could force a shaita to get divorced. Okay, umatam amru eni miskareshet. So why did they say that she can't get divorced? Because if we're going to allow a woman who's a shaita to get divorced, and it gets out on the street that this woman is a shaita, and now she's divorced, then the men are going to pounce on her because they know that she doesn't have her own defenses, and therefore she is out. Fine.
Just off topic, back to the beginning of the Gemara, two brothers that are deaf marry there's two identical twins married two identical twins, and they both had boys at the same time. And they say those two boys the genes are almost equal, like their brothers.
Really? Yidden?
I think it was Gayam, but yeah.
No, you didn't. They did it in Eretz Yisrael. Two Sfardim. Two sets of Sfardim.
Pretty wild. I guess they don't go
share. They share all the same DNA. No, that's identical.
That's pretty wild. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Okay. So let's see. I mean, this next sugi goes a little bit. I guess let's start the Mishnah. Now we're going back to when a guy appoints Adim to write a get, then they go and they get a guy to write the get. Then they go find Adim, and then what is the guy when he tells people write for me a get? Does he mean that they should give the get also, or what happens if he says give the get? Did he mean that they should write the get, or just give it? So let's see. This is a weird case. Amrullah, they said to him, Nichtav get lishlicha. Should we write a get for your wife? Again, all they asked for is to write. And he said, yeah, write it. Amrullah Seifer v'Kosav. So they went and they told the Seifer, write the get. Ula Eidim v'Chasmu. They said, go to the Eidim and sign it. Apapi she'kasvu v'chasmu v'nasnu ulay. Even though they wrote it, they signed it, and they gave it back to the husband. That's the chiddush here. Again, he told them, right, they asked him, should we write you a get? He says, yeah. They write the get, they sign the get, right? And then they give it back to the husband, and then and then the husband takes the get and gives it to the wife. Hare get bottle, no good. The get is no good. Because the husband didn't talk to the Seifer directly, and he didn't talk to the Eidim directly. He just told the guy to write the get. So Mamela, that's Mili, at least what it seemingly seems like, that's Mili Lo Mimser L'Shliach. It's words that he told one guy to do, and then they went and told it to another guy. And the chiddush of the Mishnah is that even though they kicked the get back to the husband, and he gave it, it still doesn't work. All right? So Gemara says, time at the Lo Yamar Tanu. The reason is because he didn't say give it. All right? He just told them to write it. Ha'amar Tanu. Nice, but had he said to them, give the get, and then the Edom went and they got a Seifer and Edom, then nice them. Right? So then he would be able to give the get, meaning the get would have been kosher. Meaning it's only because his terminology was off. But they said write it instead of give it. So money, who's that like? Rameiri, that's like Rameir, the Amram Bili, Mimser, and the Shliach. Because Rameir held that a Shliach could take his words and appoint another Shliach, and it's no problem. Aim a Seifa, but the thing is, what about the Seifa? Right? The last line in the Mishnah says, until you tell the Seifa, write it, and the Edom should sign it. So who's that? Meaning there he has to actually tell them. Asan Rav Yosi. That goes according to Rav Yosi. The Amar Mili Lo Mimser and L'Shliach. Words don't get handed off to a Shliach. Right? So now we have a steer in the Mishnah The Reisha sounds like Rameir, the Sefer sounds like Rabbi Yossi. So Reisha Rameir v'Sefer Rabbi Yossi. Is the Reisha Rameir and the Sefer Rabbi Yossi? In Reisha Rameir v'Sefer Rabbi Yossi. Yeah, we have no problem with that. Right? It could be, the Reisha could be Rameir and the Sefer could be Rabbi Yossi. Abaya Omar, Kula Rameir. No, he says the whole thing could be Rameir. Okay, what do you do at the end then? Where he did not give, he didn't say the word Tnu. Right? He just told them to write it. Right? If he would just say Tnu, then and a Chanami, then the Eidos would work. So Gemara says, then the Mishnah should have said until you say the word Tnu. So that's not a good teretz. Must be talking about what he didn't tell it to 3 people, right? We said 4 blot ago, 5 blot ago. We said that it depends on if he appointed 3 people or 2 people. If he appointed 3 people, then it's like a bezdin. So then they have a reshus according to Rameir to go appoint people, because a bezdin could appoint people, but 2 people cannot. So then the Gemara says, then it should have said that it's not a good get until he tells 3 people. So we say, no, the whole mission is Rabbi Yossi. It's talking about what he didn't say, go tell other people. Meaning he just told these shluchim, write the get for me. Had he told these shluchim, you can go ask somebody else to write the get, then it would have worked. All right. Okay, let's go a few more lines. Yeah. So Gemara says, then why didn't the Mishnah say until he says it's not a good get, until he says the husband says to the shluchim to say to a cipher. Fine, another kasha. Me mother Rabbi Yossi ba'imar amru, is Rabbi Yossi really, does he really admit where somebody tells somebody else to write a get that it works? Now this, we had this same kasha before, and we're going to have it again later. But nan ksav cipher the aid kosher. If a guy says it has the writing of a cipher, the get, and 1 aid, it's kosher. What does that mean? We're not talking about a ksav cipher. We're talking about where the cipher himself signed it. So, meaning a get with 1 signature is not good. It has to be that the cipher wrote the get, the cipher signed the get, and somebody else signed it. Money. And Rav Chisda said, who's our Mishnah? Tamar Aleph now. Rabbi Yossi, it's Rabbi Yossi. It's talking about according to Rabbi Yossi, who says that words don't get handed to a shliach. And if you think by the Rabbi Yossi by Amru, but if you're going to say that yes, Rabbi Yossi holds that 1 shliach can't hand over words to another shliach, but if the husband told him that he could hand over words, then it works. Nothing minei churba. We're going to have a disaster, a destruction, right? And yana diyayma. There's going to come out from it a churba. Why? Because one time the husband's going to tell 2 Eidim to go write for him a get. Tell a cipher to write a get. And tell Pliny and Pliny to sign on it. The cipher and we're, because they're going to be embarrassed for the cipher's sake, we're chayshi that they let the cipher sign it. Right? Again, because they're afraid that the cipher is embarrassed. Why can't the cipher be the aid? Must be the guy doesn't trust the cipher. But these guys are going to feel bad. So they're going to say to the cipher, you know what, you signed the aid, sign it, I'm not going to sign it. And they're going to sign it. He's going to sign it, the cipher. The Baal didn't say this, and therefore the get good. All right. So now, why wasn't Rabbi Yossi concerned for this? Elamai, because according to Rabbi Yossi, there was never a chashad for that, because Rabbi Yossi holds that that get would not be a good get, right? And nobody would think that that get is a good get, right? So Mamela, he doesn't even have to mention that concern. So bottom line is, it cannot be that Rabbi Yossi holds Amira la Amira, that's saying to one shliach to say to another shliach is good. El machfarta reisha rameir v'sefer Rabbi Yossi. So it must be that we have to say that the reisha is the reisha in the Mishnah that says that if all he said was write the get, then the get is no good. That's going to Rameir. And the sefer, which is mashma, that the that as long as how does it go again? Right, that if he would give it over to the shliach, that would have to be Rabbi Yossi. So the Ramesha is Rameir, and the Sefer is Rabbi Yossi, and and that's what the Gemara is saying, that's what it has to be. So tomorrow we have a teretz from Rav Ashi to explain it, but we'll chazir this over a little bit before we go back. All right, the Olam should have themselves a fine night. If the Olam could start thinking about what time they want to have the learning on Tisha